Still hot. Hello there. My name's Kelly, and this is my channel, also known as piKadizz, and it's piKadizz because I've always used some form of KDizz as my username for anything that required a username, going back as far as AOL Instant Messenger, or AIM. My name or username has always had some form of KDizz in it, which is based on my initials. And this channel is going to be a Pokemon focused channel. So I kind of combined the best of both to make piKadizz. What I'm looking to do is share kind of my journey or process in learning or relearning, in some cases, Pokemon. I am a 90s kid, so I grew up during the Pokemon craze, and now I'm coming back to it. And as somebody who's coming back to it about 20-ish years later, I'm finding it to be a bit overwhelming, and I thought it would be a good opportunity for me to maybe teach as I go, or like a learn with me sort of situation. There's a lot more to it. Things have evolved quite a bit, and I myself would appreciate content like this. So kind of just looking to share my progress and journey through Pokemon and learning everything that I can. So while I go through the learning journey, I'm also going to be kind of doing my own challenges, like a Pokedex challenge and some other things along the way. And I will also be sharing kind of a little bit of my donation process. Everything that I sort of accumulate or collect or get throughout this process is going to be donated, or at least about 90% of it. And I'll get into all that a little bit later, but that's just kind of going to be the gist of this channel, a sort of learn as you go or learn with me kind of deal, and a few other things along with it. When Pokemon sort of started or blew up really in the United States, I was in elementary school. So I was basically the target audience. I was in the center of that explosion. I would go home every day after school. I would rush to the TV and watch Pokemon 5 days a week. I played the card game. I would get cards for my birthday and Christmas, and any other like money I got would pretty much go towards Pokemon cards. And I would play with my friends at recess. Not always like the official way to play, but we definitely would like battle each other and do different things with the cards. And my first Game Boy game was actually Pokemon Red that I got with my first Game Boy. I had been working towards it kind of with my mom, and she took me to Target and we bought a Game Boy Color Atomic Purple, the clear one, in Pokemon Red. And that was my first Game Boy game ever. You know, I played that game like no other. It was so exciting because it was like being able to live or experience Pokemon in the way you saw it on the show. And it was blew my mind. You know, 9, 10 years old, it was like beyond my little brain's grasp. You know, it would have been, it's like the equivalent of getting your Hogwarts letter at 11, or Luke getting his dad's lightsaber. Mind blown. But as one does, I started to get older and kind of started shifting away from Pokemon. I started middle school and made some new friends, and Pokemon just kind of wasn't really in my scope any longer. I just sort of grew out of it, and around that time, that would have been, it was right around Generation 2. I remember watching a little bit of the Orange Islands on the show, and I definitely did have Pokemon Gold, but I didn't finish it. So just kind of around when Generation 2 started is when I really started shifting away from Pokemon. But I kept all this stuff. You know, I just put it in a closet and there it sat until I turned, must have been 15. I didn't have a job yet, but a friend of mine and I, we were looking to get tickets to a White Stripes concert, but didn't have jobs. So we had a garage sale and I sold everything, which is a common story, I'm pretty sure, you know, as a kid, or your parents sell your stuff or get rid of it, or it moves along somehow. And I sold all my stuff, my Game Boy stuff, my Pokemon cards, everything I could find to try and get those tickets. And that was kind of it. That was kind of the like door shutting, I guess, on my childhood at that time. Didn't even get the tickets, they were sold out. In my 20s, I played Magic the Gathering, kind of got into that for a while, played with a bunch of guys for a while, even sold some cards for a while, but strayed away from that, and again, never really got back into Pokemon beyond, like, as one does, you kind of get nostalgic for things in your childhood and you look to relive that. So maybe you buy some of the stuff you had as a kid. I bought new Game Boy and I started collecting, or like recollecting, the games I had had when I was a kid. One of them being Pokemon. This time I got Pokemon Yellow. I had as a kid as well, but that was the one I got to hit that nostalgia itch, if you will. Throughout like the last 10 years or so, I would pull it out every now and then and play, and I would kind of gathered some more things. I ended up at one point I had Fire Red, which was great. Like, it was, the remake of Red, but in a more modern type of way, which I played through and loved. So then I did end up getting a few new games that I didn't have as a kid. I got Soul Silver, which is a remake of that Gen 2 set, and then I got Emerald and Pokemon Black. But I tried them, but none of them really, they weren't nostalgic because I didn't have them as a kid. And the games have evolved so much since Generation 1 and 2, and there's way more to them that it just wasn't for me. It was too overwhelming, there was too much going on, and I was starting, behind, and I never really had the time as an adult. I'm working full time and I was going to school and doing all kinds of other stuff that I never really had the time to invest into them to where it became something I spent a lot of time on. So never really stuck with me, and Pokemon just stayed a nostalgia thing that I would do every so often for, a couple weeks before I would move on again. So how did I get here, right? How did I get to a point where I am relearning Pokemon, creating content, and really invested in the Pokemon space again? Well, it started with a YouTube short. I had been playing Yellow again, and I had been looking up some videos on how to do some of those old glitches, like the unlimited items and the Mew glitch and stuff. So I had been watching a little bit of content that was Pokemon related. And one day I was on there and I was kind of looking through it, and the thumbnail is what caught my attention. It was a pack of fossil cards. And I stopped. It did its job because those were the cards that I opened as a kid. I opened Base Set and Fossil and Jungle and Team Rocket. Like, those were the cards that I got. And it, nostalgia, ding, 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 ding. So I clicked on it, watched it, and every single card, it was like bringing me back in time with every next card. And I was like, oh man, I had that card. And oh man, I remember that card. And it was amazing. So this short was a short pocket monster video. And if you're familiar with him, you know that that channel is all about opening packs of cards. So went to the channel and I scrolled through all the videos and found every single one that had a vintage pack. Spent maybe an hour or two going through and doing and watching all those, and it was great. It was like the nostalgia you're looking for. It was time well spent for me. Loved it. Didn't really click on any other videos, wasn't interested in the newer content or the new packs or, generations, because that wasn't my time period. That was after me. So fast forward a little bit, and of course I started getting recommended more Pokemon content, specifically like card stuff, like vendor videos and things, and I didn't really click on any of them. I wasn't really something I was interested in. Somehow I ended up on a vendor video. It was a Coops collection video. And if you're familiar with him at all, you know that he's just one of the more wholesome and generous vendors out there. And his content is great. It really shows what generosity can do and what's possible when people are kind. And he really makes sure that kids feel good leaving his table and wanted, and that they're welcome in the space. I remember when I was a kid, my mom took me to an event at the Mall of America for Pokemon. I think it was a Wizards of the Coast event, and it's definitely a core memory, but I don't really remember much other than like waiting in line and hooking my Game Boy up to a boy who was in front of us in line to his Game Boy, and we played the game together, and he just like destroyed me because he knew all the glitches. So he had a level 100 Pokemon, and I had, my level 12 Squirtle. But if there had been somebody there like Coop, I probably would remember that. That just made me feel good. It's like heartwarming, wholesome stuff that's like, I think, really important these days, and something I really needed because I found myself a while ago. You doom scroll and you see all these things going on in the world, and it's not always great. So having that like positivity and seeing that there is still a lot of good stuff out there, you just have to find it. That was really great for me. And then of course other things started getting recommended and other channels like Beard Dad and Pokeshan, and I started watching Pat's long form channel on Deep Pocket Monster, and he does the live stream giveaways every week. And there's way more out there. There's way more creators and vendors and content out there that's like this, and it's a whole community, and it's just amazing, and it really motivates me to be that kind of person in a way that I can. I'm not going to be a Pokemon vendor. That's not really in my future, but I wanted to think about doing something that gives back in the way that they do, which is kind of how we got here. So even while I'm watching all these videos, like I'd put them on while I'm cleaning the house or what have you, and watching, the new ones as they come out, and I'm hearing all the Pokemon and seeing their cards and names, and it's not really sticking. I'm not retaining a lot of this information. And I started thinking about how I learned as a kid. Obviously I had way more free time as a child, but I learned by watching the show, playing the games, and having the cards and playing with the cards. So as someone who can't devote a ton of time to all three of those things, I thought it would be a good way to start by just doing like broad overviews of each. So the idea is that I will take one Pokemon per day and hit those three areas and talk about the video game, what generation it is, what's the first game it appears in, what games can you catch it in, what games can it be traded for in. Then move on to the show. Does it appear in any specific episodes where it's maybe a main feature? What season is it from? And then, of course, the trading card game. What sets have cards for this Pokemon? Maybe more specific game mechanics, popular cards, more expensive cards, stuff like that. Just three main avenues that for me were how I learned when I was younger and would be a good place to start for each to dive a little bit further if I wanted to or someone else wanted to. So I'm planning to upload one new Pokemon a day until I learn them all, which is going to take a while since there's over 1,000. I also plan on having like a side series where I will be showing kind of my personal progress. I'm going to be doing a Pokedex challenge as I learn these Pokemon, and it is going to involve cards, and that'll become more apparent as the videos kind of come out. And then there's the donation aspect where I have some ideas. I'm going to be reaching out to a few different schools in my area. There's a couple card shops and a few other things that I kind of have floating around that I'm going to be sharing as I go and showing how I plan to basically give everything I get away. I will be keeping about 10% of it for kind of like my challenges and stuff, but most of it's going to be donated and just to kind of get cards and items, whatever comes in ETBs and those bigger oversized cards if I get them, or anything else I get while I like go through this journey to kids, because that's who this is for, right? It's for kids. And when I was a kid, I could go to the store and buy packs. I got them for Christmas and my birthday. We could go to the card shop and buy the singles, but we could also buy packs. Right now, it's a lot more difficult to do that, and the prices are inflated, and that makes it harder for parents to like buy stuff for kids. And it's just, I want to be able to give back in a way that I've seen and share in that generosity, because it's helped me. It's helped me a great deal, being able to see that and just know what's out there and like being a part of that community as a passive viewer. So I kind of want to be more of an active participant in that way. So that's the idea. So if any of that interests you, you can take a look at some other videos, check out what I've got going on, and stay tuned for some more stuff. So we will see you next time.